Marcus Taylor pushed open his apartment door at 11:47 p.m. and froze. A woman stood at his kitchen sink, her hands deep in dish soap, her $3,000 blazer draped over his daughter's chair. He knew that face. Everyone at Sterling Hotels knew that face. Elena Whitfield, the CEO. The woman who signed his paychecks. The woman who controlled the lives of 12,000 employees. She turned slowly. No smile. No corporate greeting. Just eyes filled with something that looked like shame. "What the hell are you doing in my apartment?" What she told him next would shatter everything he believed about his own life and expose a betrayal so deep it would bring him to his knees. Comment below what city you're watching from, so I can see how far this story travels. Marcus Taylor had been awake for 19 hours. His body knew it. His bones knew it. The ache behind his eyes had settled into something permanent, a dull throb that had become as familiar as his own heartbeat. He pulled into the parking lot of Riverside Commons at 11:43 p.m., killed the engine, and sat there for a moment in the darkness. Maya was at his mother's place tonight. Gloria had insisted. "You look like death walking," she'd said when he dropped Maya off that morning. "Get some sleep, real sleep, in your own bed, without a child climbing on you at 6 a.m. He hadn't argued. He was too tired to argue. The apartment would be dark when he walked in. Silent. Empty. He'd microwave whatever leftovers were in the fridge, fall into bed with his work boots still on, and do it all over again tomorrow. That was the life of Marcus Taylor. That had been his life for 3 years. He climbed the stairs, slowly, keys already in hand. 3rd floor, apartment 3B. The hallway smelled like Mrs. Jenkins's pot roast and someone's burned popcorn. The fluorescent light above his door flickered the way it always did, casting shadows that made the walls look older than they were. He stopped cold when he heard water running inside. Someone was in his apartment. His first thought was Maya. Maybe Gloria had brought her back early. Maybe she'd had a nightmare, wanted her own bed, her own pillow, her daddy. But the footsteps he heard weren't a child's footsteps. They were heels, clicking against his kitchen linoleum. Marcus's hand tightened on his keys. He positioned the longest one between his fingers the way his father had taught him 30 years ago. "You never know who's waiting on the other side of a door, son. Always be ready." He pushed the door open slowly. The kitchen light was on. A woman stood at his sink with her back to him, sleeves rolled up to her elbows, washing his dishes. His coffee mug from that morning. Maya's cereal bowl. The pot he'd used to make mac and cheese 2 nights ago. She turned when she heard him. And Marcus felt the floor shift beneath his feet. He knew that face. God, he knew that face. It hung in every break room, every conference room, every hallway of every Sterling Hotels property from here to Seattle. Elena Whitfield, founder's daughter, CEO. The woman who had turned her father's modest hotel chain into a $4 billion empire. She was standing in his kitchen, washing his dishes. "What the hell are you doing in my apartment?" His voice came out harder than he intended, or maybe exactly as hard as he intended. He didn't know anymore. Elena turned off the water. She dried her hands on the dish towel hanging from his oven door, the one with the faded sunflowers that Maya had picked out at a dollar store 2 years ago. Her movements were slow, deliberate, like she was buying time. "I needed to talk to you. So you broke into my apartment." "Your neighbor let me in, Mrs. Jenkins." Elena's voice was calm, but something underneath it was cracking. "I told her I was a friend from work, that I had something important for you. She seemed happy you had a visitor." Marcus felt a flash of irritation at Mrs. Jenkins' trusting nature. The old woman was 73, widowed, lonely. She'd probably been thrilled at the thought of him having company. Any company. Even a stranger in designer clothes who had no business being there. "You couldn't have called." Elena met his eyes. "Would you have answered?" The question hung in the air between them. They both knew the answer. A call from the CEO's office would have meant trouble. Marcus would have spent every hour before any meeting convincing himself he was about to be fired, running through every possible mistake, wondering which of his 16-hour days had somehow not been enough. "What do you want?" Elena reached for a leather bag sitting on his kitchen table, his table with Maya's homework still spread across it, with the half-empty box of Cheerios pushed to the side. She pulled out a manila folder. The paper looked ordinary, but when she set it down, the weight of it seemed to press down on the entire room. 3 weeks ago, I started receiving anonymous emails. Emails about what? Financial discrepancies in the facilities division. Elena's jaw tightened. I assumed it was a disgruntled employee making noise, someone angry about a write-up maybe, someone looking for attention. So I handed it to internal audit and forgot about it. And what they found made me sick. She opened the folder. She spread documents across his table, pushing aside Maya's spelling worksheet, a crayon drawing of a purple dinosaur, a permission slip he'd forgotten to sign. Marcus didn't move to look at them. Derek Harrison, Elena said, and the name landed like a punch to the gut. Your supervisor. He's been running a ghost payroll scheme for the past 18 months. 4 employees who don't exist. 4 salaries deposited into accounts he controls. We're talking about almost $200,000 stolen directly from the company. Marcus felt something shift in his chest. Cold, heavy, like a stone settling into place. But that's not the worst part. What's the worst part? Elena's voice tightened. He's been redistributing their workload. All 4 of them. Every task, every emergency call, every overnight shift that should have been handled by a team of 5. It's all been landing on you. You, Marcus. You alone. The silence stretched between them. Marcus thought about the past 3 years. The calls at 2 a.m. when a pipe burst in the East Wing. The 16-hour days that somehow became 18-hour days. The weekends that disappeared into emergency repairs and understaffed shifts. The way Derek Harrison always had an excuse. Budget cuts, you understand. We're all doing more with less. I know I work more than the others, Marcus said flatly. That's not news. It's not just the workload. Elena pulled another document from the folder. Her hands were trembling. He noticed that. The CEO of a $4 billion company, and her hands were trembling. Your performance reviews have been altered, every quarter, for the past 3 years. She looked at him and her eyes were bright with something that might have been tears. Harrison has been submitting evaluations that keep you exactly 1 point below the threshold for promotion consideration. Your actual numbers, your efficiency ratings, your response times, your guest satisfaction scores, they're exceptional. They're among the best in the entire company. But on paper... On paper what? On paper, you're perpetually almost good enough. Never quite there. Always 1 step behind. The words landed like physical blows. Marcus stared at the documents. Columns of numbers, graphs, charts, performance metrics that meant nothing and everything at the same time. 3 years of his life reduced to data points on a spreadsheet. 3 years of believing he wasn't quite measuring up. 3 years of pushing harder, sleeping less, missing Maya's dance recitals and birthday parties and parent-teacher conferences because he thought he truly believed that if he just worked a little more, tried a little harder, he might finally get ahead. Why me? The question came out as barely more than a whisper. Why not someone else? Elena was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice cracked. Because you don't have anyone in your corner. No family connections to the company. No golf buddies in management. No fraternity brothers in HR. She paused, and the pause said everything. And because Harrison knew that a black man in a department full of white supervisors would have a harder time being believed if he ever complained. Marcus sat down. He didn't mean to sit down. His body just gave out. The chair creaked under his weight, the cheap plastic chair he'd bought at a thrift store when he and Denise first moved in back when they were young and broke and convinced that everything would work out somehow. Denise. God, Denise. She died 3 years ago. Car accident. Wrong place, wrong time, wrong everything. One phone call had shattered his entire world. Maya was 5 years old, and suddenly Marcus was a single father with a mortgage he couldn't afford and a job that demanded everything he had. He'd taken exactly 3 days off after the funeral. 3 days to bury his wife, pack up her things, explain to his daughter why mommy wasn't coming home. Then he'd gone back to work. Because the bills didn't stop. Because Maya needed food, clothes, a roof over her head. Because grief was a luxury he couldn't afford. The company had sent flowers. Harrison had signed the card without looking up from his computer. 3 years, Marcus said, and his voice broke on the words. I missed 3 years of my daughter's life for this. Elena stood motionless on the other side of the kitchen. She didn't offer comfort. She didn't move to touch him. She seemed to understand that nothing she could do in this moment would be welcome. Marcus pressed the heels of his hands against his eyes. He would not cry. He would not fall apart. Not here. Not in front of this woman who had built an empire while he was drowning in her own building. When he finally looked up, his expression had hardened into something between rage and exhaustion. Why are you here? Really? I told you. I needed to know. Marcus cut her off. You could have sent lawyers. You could have called me into a conference room with HR and a settlement agreement. You could have made this clinical and clean and protected the company's liability. So why are you standing in my kitchen at midnight? Why are you washing my dishes like some kind of... I don't even know what. Elena was quiet for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice had lost all its corporate smoothness. What remained was raw, human, broken. Because I built that company from my father's legacy. And I told myself I was building something fair. Something that rewarded hard work regardless of where someone came from or what they looked like. She sat down across from him, the kitchen table between them, like a negotiating desk. I believed that. I needed to believe it. Because believing it was comfortable. And now... 3 weeks ago, I looked at a spreadsheet. Just numbers and names, one of thousands. Your name, your employee number, your salary that hadn't increased in 3 years, despite our facilities division running more efficiently than ever. Elena's hands pressed flat against the table. When I started pulling threads, your file came up, and I saw everything. You saw numbers, Marcus said. Data points. I saw a single father working hours that should be illegal. I saw a salary that hadn't increased in 3 years despite productivity going up 40%. I saw a man being systematically erased while I signed off on quarterly reports that told me everything was fine. She looked at him. I saw someone drowning in my own building, and I didn't even know his name. So what this is penance, you came here to feel better about yourself. You wash my dishes, tell me how sorry you are, and then you get to sleep at night, knowing you did something. I came because I didn't know what else to do. Elena's voice cracked again, and this time she didn't try to hide it. I sat in my car outside your building for an hour. An hour, Marcus, trying to figure out the right way to do this. And you know what I realized? There is no right way. There's no protocol. There's no corporate policy for how to tell someone that their life has been stolen from them. She gestured toward the sink. So I came inside and your dishes were sitting there and I just started washing them. Because I needed to do something useful while I waited. Something real and small and ordinary. Something that wasn't a spreadsheet or a memo or a legal document. Her voice dropped. I needed to be a human being for 5 minutes. And I didn't know how else to do it. Marcus studied her face. He was looking for the performance. The corporate mask. The calculated vulnerability that executives learned to deploy when they needed something from someone. He didn't find it. What he found instead was a woman who seemed genuinely shattered by what she'd discovered. A woman who had driven across the city at midnight to stand in a stranger's kitchen because she couldn't live with herself otherwise. And he didn't know what to do with that. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now I try to fix what I can." Elena met his eyes. "It won't be enough. It can never be enough. But I have to try." A key turned in the front door. Both of them went still. The door swung open. Gloria Taylor stood in the doorway. Maya asleep in her arms, the little girl's head resting on her grandmother's shoulder. She threw up. Gloria said, her eyes darting between Marcus and the stranger at his table. "Thought she should be home in her own bed." Her voice hardened. "Who's this?" Marcus stood quickly. "Mama." "I asked you a question, Marcus. Who is this woman?" Elena rose from her chair slowly. "Mrs. Taylor. I wasn't talking to you." Gloria's voice could cut glass when she wanted it to. "Marcus, explain." "She's my CEO mama, from Sterling. She came to tell me—" He stopped. How did he even begin to explain this? It's complicated. "It's almost midnight. This woman is sitting in your kitchen. My granddaughter is sick in my arms. You better uncomplicate it real fast." Maya stirred. Her eyes fluttered open, heavy with sleep and fever. "Daddy!" Marcus moved immediately, taking his daughter from Gloria's arms. Maya was warm, too warm. Her forehead was damp with sweat, her pajamas clinging to her small body. "I'm here, baby. Daddy's here." "I threw up at Grandma's house. It was gross." "I know, sweetheart. You're home now." Maya's eyes drifted past her father to the woman standing by the table. "Who's that lady?" Elena's expression shifted. Something softened in her face. The CEO disappeared, and in her place stood someone else entirely. Someone who looked at this sick child with an ache that seemed to come from somewhere deep and old. "I'm a friend of your father's, from work." "You're pretty." Maya's voice was thick with exhaustion. "Is that your real hair?" Elena touched her hair almost self-consciously. "It is." "I like it. Daddy, can I have water?" Gloria moved toward the kitchen, still shooting suspicious looks at Elena. Marcus carried Maya to the couch, settling her against the cushions, pulling the throw blanket over her legs. "I should go," Elena said quietly. "Yeah." Marcus didn't look at her. "You should." But Maya was looking. Even half asleep and feverish, she was watching Elena with that particular curiosity of children. The kind that sees through pretense, through titles, through everything adults build to protect themselves. "Why are you at our house so late?" Elena glanced at Marcus. He gave a slight nod. "I came to talk to your father about work." "Daddy works too much." Maya said it with absolute conviction. "He's always tired. He falls asleep before the end of movies. Sometimes he forgets to eat dinner because he's still doing work stuff on his computer." "Nia," Marcus started. "It's true, Daddy. You do." Maya looked back at Elena. "Are you Daddy's boss?" "Yes, I am." "Then why do you make him work so much?" The question hung in the air. Simple. Devastating. The way only a child's question can be. Elena knelt down slowly so she was at Maya's eye level. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "Your daddy is one of the hardest workers at my company. He should have been working less this whole time. I'm trying to fix that." "Good." Maya nodded seriously. "Because I miss him." Gloria stopped moving in the kitchen. Marcus felt his throat close. Elena stayed kneeling, her eyes bright, looking at this 8-year-old who had just said what all the spreadsheets and memos could never capture. The human cost. The real price. The thing that couldn't be measured in efficiency ratings or performance metrics. "I know you do," Elena said softly. "And I'm so sorry." Maya tilted her head. "Why are you sorry? Daddy says sorry is for when you did something wrong." Elena was quiet for a long moment. Sometimes people do wrong things without meaning to, because they're not paying attention, and then they have to work really hard to make it right. Maya seemed to consider this. Her eyelids were growing heavy again, the exhaustion pulling her back toward sleep. "Okay, I'm tired again," she yawned. "Nice to meet you, pretty lady." Marcus scooped his daughter up before she could say anything else. He carried her toward her bedroom, leaving Gloria and Elena standing in the kitchen. The silence between them was thick enough to touch. Maya's room was small, barely big enough for her twin bed, and the bookshelf Marcus had built from scrap wood. But the walls were lavender, her favorite color, and covered with drawings and posters and all the things that made a little girl's room her own. He laid her down gently, pulled the covers up to her chin. "Daddy." "Yeah, baby." That lady seemed sad. "She is sad." "Why?" Marcus brushed the hair back from Maya's forehead. How did he explain this? How did he tell his 8-year-old daughter that the world was unfair, that people were cruel, that her father had been invisible for 3 years and hadn't even known it? She found out that something bad happened to someone she should have been protecting. Was the someone you? Marcus swallowed hard. "Yeah, baby, the someone was me." Maya's small hand found his. "Are you going to be okay, Daddy?" "I'm going to be fine. Promise." He looked at his daughter. This fierce, beautiful, resilient child who had lost her mother at 5 and never once complained about everything they didn't have. Who made him laugh when he wanted to cry. Who was the only reason he got up in the morning, the only reason any of it mattered. "I promise." "Okay." Maya's eyes closed. "I love you, Daddy." "I love you too, baby. More than anything in the whole world." He stayed there for a long time, watching her breathe, watching the fever flush slowly fade from her cheeks. Through the thin walls, he could hear voices in the kitchen, his mother's sharp tone, Elena's quieter responses. When he finally walked back out, he found Gloria standing with her arms crossed and Elena putting on her jacket. The tension between them was palpable. "I'll let you get Maya settled," Elena said. She pulled a business card from her pocket and set it on the table. "My personal cell is on the back. Call me when you're ready to talk about next steps." She paused. "There's no deadline. Take whatever time you need." She moved toward the door, then stopped. "For what it's worth, I'm going to do everything in my power to make this right. Not because it's good for the company. Not because I'm afraid of lawsuits." Her voice steadied. "Because it's what should have happened 3 years ago. And I failed you. I failed a lot of people. I won't fail again." She left without waiting for a response. The door clicked shut behind her. Gloria turned to Marcus with 100 questions in her eyes. "Later," he said. His voice was barely a whisper. "I'll explain everything later. Right now I just need to sit with my daughter until she falls asleep." "Marcus, please, Mama, just later." Gloria studied her son's face. Whatever she saw there made her nod slowly. "I'll be here in the morning. We'll talk then." She gathered her things and left, squeezing his arm as she passed. Marcus stood alone in his kitchen, looking at the folder still spread across his table. The documents, the numbers, the evidence of 3 years stolen from his life. He picked up the business card Elena had left behind. Her personal cell, written in blue ink on the back. Outside, a car engine started. Headlights swept across his window as she pulled away. Marcus walked to Maya's room and lay down beside her on the small bed, staring at the lavender walls he'd painted with such desperate hope 3 years ago. His daughter curled against him, her small body warm with fever, her breathing slow and steady. "Daddy," she murmured, half asleep. "Yeah, baby." "I don't think the pretty lady is bad. She seemed sad." "She is sad." "Good. Sad means she cares." Marcus didn't answer. He just held his daughter and listened to her breathing and wondered if caring was enough to fix anything. The business card was still in his hand. Elena Whitfield's personal number written in blue ink, 3 years stolen, and now somehow impossibly a chance to take them back. Marcus didn't sleep that night. He lay beside Maya until her fever broke around 3 a.m., then moved to the couch where he stared at the ceiling and listened to the sounds of the building settling around him. The refrigerator hummed. A car alarm went off somewhere in the parking lot. Through the thin walls he could hear Mr. Iberti's Patterson's television. The old man watched infomercials all night because he said the silence reminded him too much of his wife being gone. Marcus understood that now. The silence. The way it pressed in on you when you had too much to think about and no one to think it with. The folder was still on his kitchen table. He'd looked through it twice more after Elena left, reading every document, every email, every falsified performance review. The evidence was overwhelming. Undeniable. 3 years of his life systematically dismantled by a man he'd trusted. Derek Harrison. Marcus had worked for Derek for almost 4 years now. Had covered his shifts when Derek's kids got sick. Had fixed problems that Derek caused and let Derek take credit for the solutions. Had smiled and nodded and said, "Yes, sir," 1,000 times, because that was what you did when you were a black man in a white man's world and you needed to keep your job. He'd thought Derek was just lazy. Incompetent, maybe. The kind of manager who coasted on other people's work because he'd never had to prove himself. He'd never imagined this. The sun came up slowly, gray light filtering through the blinds. Marcus heard Maya stirring in her room around 6:30, and by the time he'd made it to her door, she was sitting up in bed with that particular alertness of a child who's been sick and is now feeling dramatically better. "I'm hungry, Daddy." "What do you want?" "Pancakes, the ones with the chocolate chips." "You threw up 6 hours ago." "I feel better now. Pancakes, please." Marcus made pancakes. He let Maya help crack the eggs, even though she got shell in the batter, and he didn't say anything when she poured in twice as many chocolate chips as the recipe called for. They ate together at the kitchen table, Maya chattering about a dream she'd had about flying dinosaurs, while Marcus moved the folder to the counter so she wouldn't ask about it. Gloria arrived at 8:00, letting herself in with the key Marcus had given her years ago. "Maya, baby, go get dressed. I brought you some clean clothes in my bag." "But I'm eating pancakes." "Take them with you. Grandma needs to talk to your daddy." Maya looked between them, sensing the tension, but she knew better than to argue when Gloria used that tone. She grabbed her plate and disappeared into her room, closing the door behind her. Gloria sat down across from Marcus. She didn't say anything for a long moment, just looked at him with those eyes that had seen him through every crisis of his life, from skinned knees to his wife's funeral. "Tell me." So he told her. Everything. The ghost employees, the falsified reviews, the workload that should have been split 5 ways, landing entirely on him. The realization that 3 years of exhaustion, 3 years of believing he wasn't good enough, 3 years of missing his daughter's life, all of it had been engineered by a man who saw him as nothing more than a tool to be used. When he finished, Gloria was silent. "Mama, I'm thinking." "About what?" "About whether I want to drive to that hotel right now and put my hands on Derek Harrison, or whether I want to let the lawyers handle it first." "Mama." "Don't mama me." Gloria's voice was hard, but her eyes were bright with tears. 3 years, Marcus. 3 years I watched you run yourself into the ground. 3 years I took Maya to dance recitals you couldn't make. 3 years I told myself my son was just working hard because that's what good men do. Her voice cracked. And the whole time that man was stealing from you, stealing your time, stealing your promotions, stealing your life. I know. Do you really know? Gloria leaned forward. Because I remember what you were like before Denise died. I remember the man who laughed, who played with his daughter in the yard, who had dreams about starting his own business someday. That man disappeared, Marcus, and I thought it was grief. I thought you were just broken from losing your wife. But it wasn't just grief, was it? Marcus looked down at his hands. I believed them, Mama. Every time they told me I wasn't quite good enough. Every time they passed me over for a promotion. Every time Derek said I needed to step up or show more initiative. His voice was barely a whisper. I believed I was the problem. Gloria reached across the table and took his hands in hers. You listen to me, Marcus Anthony Taylor. You are not the problem. You have never been the problem. You are a good man who got trapped in a bad system, and the only crime you committed was trusting people who didn't deserve your trust. What am I supposed to do now? What did that woman offer you, the CEO? Marcus pulled Elena's business card from his pocket and set it on the table. She wants to make it right. That's what she said. She wants to fix it. And you believe her. I don't know what I believe anymore. Gloria picked up the card, studied it, set it back down. What does your gut tell you? Marcus thought about Elena in his kitchen. The way her hands had trembled. The way she'd knelt down to talk to Maya, looking at his daughter like she mattered. The way she'd said, I failed you, like she actually meant it. My gut says she's telling the truth. My gut says she really is sick over what happened. But she's still the CEO. She's still the one who let this happen in the first place. And I don't know if her guilt is real or if it's just performance. Something she does to protect the company from a lawsuit. Gloria nodded slowly. Here's what I think. I think you call that woman. I think you hear what she has to offer, and I think you make damn sure you get a lawyer of your own before you sign anything. She squeezed his hands. But I also think you need to decide what you actually want, not what's safest, not what's easiest. What do you want, Marcus? What did he want? He wanted his life back. He wanted the 3 years he'd lost. He wanted to look in the mirror and not see a man who'd been fooled. But more than any of that, more than justice or money or vindication, he wanted to be there for his daughter. He wanted to be the father Maya deserved. The one who made it to her recitals. The one who wasn't too exhausted to help with homework. The one who stayed awake until the end of movies. I want to stop being invisible, he said quietly. I want someone to see me. Gloria's eyes softened. Then make them see you, baby. Make them all see you. Marcus called Elena that afternoon. She answered on the second ring like she'd been waiting. Marcus, how's Maya? Better. Fever broke around 3. Good, that's good. A pause. Have you thought about what we discussed? I've thought about it. I want to meet, but not at Sterling, and not at my apartment. Somewhere neutral. Name the place. There's a diner on Riverside, Lou's. You know it? I'll find it. When? Tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock. I'll be there. Marcus hung up and looked at his mother, who was watching him from the kitchen doorway. What? Nothing. Gloria almost smiled. Just nice to see you taking charge of something for once. Lou's Diner had been on Riverside Avenue for 43 years. The booths were cracked vinyl, the coffee was burnt, and the pancakes were the best in the city. Marcus had been coming here since he was a kid. His father used to bring him for Saturday breakfast before Little League games. He got there early, sat in a booth at the back where he could see the door, ordered coffee, and waited. Elena walked in at exactly 800. She looked different than she had 2 nights ago. Still polished, still the CEO, but there was something softer about her. Like she'd made a conscious decision to leave some of her armor at home. She wore slacks and a simple blouse. No blazer. No jewelry except for a small pair of earrings. She slid into the booth across from him. Thank you for meeting me. Thank you for coming. The waitress appeared, Diane, who'd been working at Lou's since Marcus was in high school. Coffee, hun? Please. Diane poured, glanced between them with obvious curiosity, and retreated. Elena wrapped her hands around her mug. I want to start by saying something, and I want you to really hear it. I'm listening. I've spent the last 3 days going through every file, every email, every performance review in the facilities division. Not just yours, everyone's. And what I found... She shook her head. Derek Harrison wasn't just targeting you. He was running a system, a whole ecosystem of exploitation. But you got the worst of it. By far. Why me? Because you were perfect for what he needed. A single father. No time for office politics, no connections to anyone in management. Someone who would keep his head down and work himself to death without complaining. Because I'm black. Elena didn't flinch. Yes, because you're black. Because Harrison knew that if you ever did complain, it would be your word against his. And in a department full of white managers, he calculated correctly that he had the advantage. Marcus took a long sip of his coffee. What are you offering? Director of Facilities Operations. Direct report to the VP of our hospitality division. Salary that reflects what you should have been earning for the past 3 years, plus back pay for the difference. Elena held his gaze. Standard hours. Real hours. The kind where you leave at 5 and don't get called at midnight because a toilet's overflowing in the East Wing. That's a lot. It's what you've earned. The numbers prove it. Your efficiency ratings, your response times, your guest satisfaction scores, they're better than anyone in the division. Better than anyone in the company, actually. A small, sad smile. You've been doing the job of 5 people and doing it better than 5 people could. The only thing that's been stopping your advancement is deliberate sabotage. And if I take it, I become the diversity hire. The black guy who got promoted because the CEO felt guilty. Some people will say that, regardless of the circumstances. I know. That's the point. Elena leaned forward. Here's what I know, Marcus. I know that you've earned this position 10 times over. I know that the only reason you don't already have it is because someone cheated. And I know that no matter what people say, the numbers don't lie. She paused. This isn't charity. This isn't guilt money, although yes, there's guilt, and I won't pretend otherwise. This is correction, pure and simple. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Ask. If I were white, would any of this have happened to me? Elena didn't answer immediately. The silence stretched between them, uncomfortable and necessary. Outside, a truck rumbled past on Riverside. Inside, someone dropped a plate in the kitchen, and the sound of shattering ceramic seemed to hang in the air. I've been asking myself that question every day since I found your file, Elena said finally. Her voice was barely above a whisper. And I think we both know the answer. Harrison chose you because you were vulnerable. Because the system made you vulnerable. Because men who look like him have been exploiting men who look like you for generations, and they've gotten away with it because people like me don't look closely enough. She met his eyes. I can't undo what happened. I can't give you back the time you missed with your daughter. I can't erase the exhaustion and the doubt and the pain, but I can make sure it never happens to anyone else at my company, and I can give you the position you've earned. She paused. If you'll take it. I need time to think about it. Take all the time you need. Marcus thought about it for 3 days. He talked to his mother, who was still suspicious but pragmatic. Get a lawyer, she kept saying. Get everything in writing. Don't trust anyone. He talked to Pastor Williams at Mount Zion, who counseled forgiveness without naivety. A man can change the world, or he can let the world change him, the pastor said. You've got a chance to be in the room now. What you do with that is between you and God. He talked to Maya, who just wanted to know if Daddy would be home for dinner more often. If I take this job, I'll be home by 6 o'clock every day. Really? Really? And you'll come to my dance recital next month. I'll be in the front row. Maya threw her arms around his neck. Then take the job, Daddy. Take the job. On Monday morning, Marcus called Elena. I'll take the position, but I have conditions. Name them. I want a lawyer to review everything before I sign. My own lawyer, not someone from Sterling. Done. I want the promotion announced publicly. No quiet reassignment. No cover story. I want everyone to know what Harrison did and why I'm being moved up. That's complicated. The board may push back. Then push back harder. You said you wanted to make this right. Making it right means not hiding what went wrong. Elena was quiet for a moment. You're right. I'll handle the board. One more thing. What? I want to be part of the conversation about what happens to Harrison. I don't want him quietly retiring with a severance package. I want accountability. He's already been terminated, and our legal team is preparing criminal referrals for the embezzlement. He's going to face real consequences. Good. Marcus hung up and looked at his mother, who was sitting at the kitchen table with Maya helping her with homework. Well, Gloria asked. I took the job. Gloria nodded slowly. Then she smiled a real smile, the first one Marcus had seen from her in days. Good. Now go take your daughter to school. You've got a new life to start living. The news of Derek Harrison's termination spread through Sterling hotels like wildfire. Internal investigation, financial misconduct. The official statement was carefully worded, sanitized, designed to minimize scandal. But everyone knew something bigger was happening. The whispers started before Marcus even walked into his new office. Did you hear about Harrison embezzlement? Fake employees, hundreds of thousands of dollars. And that Taylor guy from maintenance, apparently he was doing the work of 5 people. The CEO found out and hit the roof. Marcus walked into his new office on a Tuesday morning. It was small by executive standards. Just a desk, 2 chairs and a window overlooking the parking lot. But it had a door. A door he could close. A door with his name on it. Marcus Taylor, Director of Facilities Operations. He stood there for a long moment just looking at those words. His first week was a gauntlet. The other managers didn't know how to interact with him. Some were polite to the point of awkwardness, asking about his daughter and his weekend plans like they were reading from a script. Others made no effort to hide their resentment. He heard the whispers. Diversity hire. Affirmative action. Political correctness gone mad. He didn't respond. He didn't engage. He just kept his head down and focused on the work the way he always had. The way his father had taught him. You can't control what people say about you, his father used to say. You can only control what you do. So do your job better than anyone else and let the results speak for themselves. The first person to actually talk to him like a normal human being was James Crawford. James was a facility supervisor, had been for 22 years. He was black, 63 years old, and had seen more at Sterling hotels than most people could imagine. He stopped by Marcus's office on the 3rd day and closed the door behind him without asking permission. You doing okay? Marcus shrugged. Surviving. That's about all any of us have ever done here. James sat down in the chair across from Marcus's desk. The familiarity of a shared experience made formality unnecessary. I've been watching this company for over 2 decades. You're the first black man in a management position since Kevin Mitchell got pushed out in 2011. What happened to him? Same thing that almost happened to you. Just slower. Death by 1,000 cuts. James shook his head. They didn't need to create ghost employees back then. They just made his life so miserable he quit. Called it a voluntary resignation. Different decade, same playbook. So why do you stay? Because somebody has to be here to watch, and because I had 4 kids who needed health insurance. James leaned forward. Listen, I'm glad you got this position. You deserve it. But don't think for a second that Elena Whitfield's guilt is going to protect you forever. What do you mean? I mean the system doesn't change because the CEO has a crisis of conscience. It changes when we make it change. One day at a time, one fight at a time. He stood up. You're in the room now. That matters. But being in the room and having a voice in the room are 2 different things. Don't forget that. Marcus nodded slowly. I'm not looking for protection. I'm looking to do my job well enough that nobody can question whether I belong here. James smiled, but there was no humor in it. Then you're going to have to be twice as good for half the recognition. Same as always. He moved toward the door. But at least now you'll be in the room where it happens. That's something. 2 weeks into his new position, Marcus faced his first real test. A renovation project at the downtown property was running over budget. The contractor, a company called Reynolds Construction, had been overcharging for months. Substandard materials, inflated labor costs, work that had to be redone because it wasn't up to code. Marcus reviewed the invoices, compared them to industry standards, built a case. When he presented his findings to the VP, the pushback was immediate. Reynolds has been with us for 15 years. Reynolds has been overcharging us for 15 years. Tom Reynolds is friends with half the board. Tom Reynolds is stealing from this company. The VP, a man named Daniel Garrett, who'd been with Sterling almost as long as James Crawford, leaned back in his chair. This is a sensitive situation, Marcus. We need to handle it carefully. What's sensitive about it? The numbers are clear. They're charging us 30% above market rate and delivering 20% below standard. That's theft. It's business. It's wrong. Garrett studied him for a long moment. You've been here 2 weeks. You sure you want to make enemies this fast? I'm not trying to make enemies. I'm trying to do my job. Sometimes those are the same thing. Marcus held his ground. I was hired to oversee facilities operations. That means making sure we're not getting ripped off by contractors who think they can coast on personal relationships. He paused. If you want someone who's going to look the other way, you hired the wrong person. The silence stretched between them. Finally, Garrett nodded. Put together a full report. I'll present it to the board next month. Not next month, next week. The longer we wait, the more money we lose. You're pushing hard for someone who's been here 2 weeks. I've been here 3 years. I just finally have a seat at the table. The Reynolds contract was terminated 2 weeks later. Marcus documented everything, built his case meticulously, presented it to the board with charts and graphs and projections that left no room for argument. Tom Reynolds threatened to make his life hell. 2 other directors pressured him to back down. He didn't. Elena stayed out of it publicly. She let Marcus handle the situation on his own merits, which was exactly what he'd wanted, even as part of him resented the isolation. If he succeeded, it would be his success. If he failed, it would be his failure. He didn't fail. The new contractor came in under budget. The renovation finished ahead of schedule. Marcus's department posted the best quarterly numbers in the division's history. The whispers didn't stop. They probably never would. But they got quieter, and for the first time in 3 years, Marcus Taylor felt like he could breathe. The text came 3 weeks into Marcus's new position. He was sitting in his office reviewing budget projections for the next quarter when his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen expecting Maya's school or his mother with some update about dinner plans. Instead, he saw Elena Whitfield's name. How's Maya doing? I remember she was sick that night. Hope she's feeling better. Marcus stared at the message for a long moment. It was such a simple thing. A few words, a question about his daughter, but something about it felt different from every other interaction they'd had. This wasn't about work. This wasn't about guilt or correction or corporate responsibility. This was just human. He typed back, "She's good. Back to school, back to driving me crazy with questions about everything." The response came almost immediately. That's the best kind of crazy. He found himself smiling. Before he could think better of it, he wrote, "She asked about you. Wanted to know if the pretty lady was coming back." A pause. Then, "What did you tell her?" "Told her I didn't know. Adults are complicated. We really are." Marcus set his phone down and tried to focus on the budget projections again. The numbers blurred in front of him. He picked up the phone. "Thanks for checking in. It means something. I'm glad. Take care of yourself, Marcus." That should have been the end of it. A brief exchange. 2 colleagues maintaining a polite distance after an impossible situation. Professional, appropriate, safe. But it wasn't the end. The texts continued over the following weeks. Nothing inappropriate. Nothing that crossed any obvious lines. Just small moments of connection that accumulated like snow, each one insignificant on its own. But together, they began to build into something substantial. Elena asked about Maya's dance classes. Marcus told her about the recital coming up in 2 months, how Maya had been practicing her routine every night in the living room until the downstairs neighbors complained about the noise. Marcus asked about her day. Elena told him about board meetings and investor calls, and the particular exhaustion of being responsible for 12,000 employees' livelihoods. "Do you ever get tired of it?" he asked one evening when Maya was asleep and he was sitting on his balcony with a beer he didn't really want. His phone rang instead of buzzing with a text. Elena's voice came through slightly hoarse. "Every single day. But then I walk through one of our hotels and I see a housekeeper who's been with us for 20 years, or a front desk clerk who started as a bellhop and worked his way up, and I remember why it matters." She paused. "Do you ever get tired of it? The work, I mean." "I used to, when it felt pointless, when I was killing myself for nothing." Marcus took a sip of his beer. "Now it feels different. Now I actually see results. I make a decision and it matters. That changes everything. I'm glad. Are you? Why wouldn't I be? Because I'm still the reminder of what went wrong. Every time you see my name, you have to think about Harrison and the investigation and everything that happened." Elena was quiet for a moment. "You're not a reminder of what went wrong, Marcus. You're proof that something can still go right." He didn't know what to say to that, so he said nothing. They stayed on the phone for another 20 minutes, talking about nothing important, favorite restaurants, movies they'd seen recently, the particular challenges of Chicago winters. When they finally hung up, Marcus realized he was still smiling. That scared him more than anything else. The first time Elena came to dinner, it was Maya's idea. "Daddy, can we invite Miss Elena over? I want to show her my dance routine." "Baby, Miss Elena is very busy. She runs a whole company." "So, you're busy too, and you still have dinner with me." Marcus didn't have an argument for that. He texted Elena expecting her to politely decline. Instead, she wrote back, "What time, and what should I bring?" She arrived at 6:30 with a bottle of wine for Marcus and a coloring book for Maya, one of those elaborate ones with mandalas and geometric patterns that were supposedly for adults, but that Maya immediately claimed as her own. "This is so cool. Look, Daddy, it has like a million tiny spaces to color. What do you say, Maya?" "Thank you, Miss Elena. You can just call me Elena, or Lena if that's easier." Maya considered this seriously. "I like Lena. It sounds like a princess name." Elena laughed a real laugh, not the controlled corporate sound Marcus had heard in meetings. "That's the nicest thing anyone said to me in years." Dinner was tacos, Maya's favorite. Marcus had learned to make them properly after Denise died, spending hours watching YouTube videos until he could get the seasoning right. It was the one meal he was genuinely proud of. Elena ate 3. "These are incredible. Where did you learn to cook like this?" "YouTube and desperation. When you're a single dad, you figure things out fast." "My mother never taught me to cook. She had people for that." Elena shook her head. "I survived on takeout and protein bars until I was 30. "That's sad," Maya announced. "Cooking is fun. Daddy lets me help sometimes. I'm really good at stirring." "Maybe you can teach me." "Okay. Next time you come over, we'll make cookies. Daddy's cookies are good, but not as good as Grandma's. Don't tell him I said that." "Your secret's safe with me." After dinner, Maya performed her dance routine, a 2-minute piece set to a pop song that Marcus had heard approximately 8,000 times in the past month. Elena watched with genuine attention, applauding at the end, like Maya had just performed at Carnegie Hall. "That was amazing. How long have you been dancing?" "Since I was 5. Mommy signed me up." Maya's voice got a little quieter. "She used to dance too. Daddy has videos." Elena glanced at Marcus, something shifting in her expression. "I bet she was beautiful." She was. She was the most beautiful dancer ever. Maya climbed onto the couch next to Elena. "Do you dance?" "Not really. I'm not very coordinated." "That's okay. I can teach you. I'm a good teacher. I taught Daddy the floss, but he's really bad at it." I am not that bad. Daddy, you are so bad. You look like a robot having a seizure. Marcus tried to look offended, but Elena was laughing again, that real laugh, and Maya was giggling, and something in his chest loosened in a way it hadn't in years. This was what he'd been missing. This was what 3 years of exhaustion had stolen from him. Not just time, but joy. The simple pleasure of sitting in his own kitchen, listening to his daughter laugh, sharing a meal with someone who actually wanted to be there. After Maya went to bed, Marcus and Elena sat on the small balcony with what remained of the wine. The city hummed around them, traffic sounds, distant sirens, someone's music playing 2 floors down. "Thank you for tonight," Elena said. "Thank you for coming. Maya had a great time." "So did I." She was quiet for a moment. "I don't do this, you know. Dinners at people's homes. Conversations that aren't about quarterly projections." She looked at him. "I don't know how to be a person anymore. I forgot somewhere along the way. You seemed pretty human to me tonight." "That's because of you. Both of you. You make it easy." Marcus didn't know how to respond to that. So he just sat there, feeling the warmth of her presence beside him, wondering when the last time was that anyone had made anything easy for him. The dinners became a pattern. Once a week, then twice. Elena learned to make tacos badly at first, then passably, then well enough that Maya declared them almost as good as Daddy's, which is a big compliment. She helped Marcus study for the management certification exam he'd been putting off for years. She sat at his kitchen table with flashcards and practice tests quizzing him until he could recite hospitality regulations in his sleep. She was there when Maya lost her first tooth at the dinner table cheering with Marcus, as they convinced an skeptical 8-year-old that the tooth fairy was definitely real and definitely coming tonight. She was there when Marcus got the news that Derek Harrison had been indicted on federal embezzlement charges. They sat on the balcony that night and didn't say much, just existed in the same space, while Marcus processed 3 years of anger and betrayal finally leading somewhere. "Does it feel like justice?" Elena asked. "I don't know. It feels like something. I'm not sure justice is the right word." What would justice feel like? Marcus thought about it. Like getting those years back. Like my daughter not having to wonder why Daddy was always too tired to play with her. Like never having doubted myself in the first place. He shook his head. Harrison going to prison doesn't give me any of that. No, it doesn't. So maybe justice isn't the point. What is the point? Moving forward. Building something better. Making sure Maya grows up knowing her father isn't invisible. He looked at Elena. Being seen. She reached over and took his hand. Her fingers were cool against his palm. Neither of them said anything about it. Neither of them pulled away. 2 months later, Maya asked the question Marcus had been dreading. They were eating breakfast pancakes again, because Maya would eat pancakes for every meal if he let her, when she looked up from her plate with that particular expression children get when they're about to say something that will complicate everything. "Daddy, is Lena your girlfriend?" Marcus nearly choked on his coffee. "What? Why would you ask that?" "Because she comes over all the time, and you smile more when she's here. And I heard Grandma tell Aunt Rita that you were playing with fire." Maya frowned. "What does that mean? Are you going to get burned?" Grandma was just... She was talking about grown-up stuff. "So, Lena is your girlfriend." "It's complicated, baby." "Why?" "Because she's my boss. Because she's white and I'm black and people will talk. Because I don't know if what I feel is real or just gratitude for someone who finally saw me. Because loving someone and losing them almost destroyed me once, and I don't know if I can survive it again." He said none of this. Sometimes grown-up feelings take time to figure out. Maya considered this while chewing her pancake. "Well, I think you should figure it out. I like Lena. She's nice, and she helps with my homework, and she doesn't treat us like we're different." "Different how?" "Different, like some of the moms at school treat us. Like we're sad or weird or something because I don't have a mommy. Maya shrugged. Lena just treats us normal. I like that. Marcus didn't know what to say. His 8-year-old had just articulated something he'd been feeling for months, but hadn't been able to name. That night after Maya was asleep, he called Elena. We need to talk, in person. She came over the next evening. They sat on the couch, more space between them than usual. The air felt different, charged. Maya asked if you were my girlfriend. Elena's expression flickered. What did you tell her? That it was complicated. That grown-ups take time to figure out their feelings. Is that what we're doing? Figuring out our feelings. I don't know what we're doing. That's the problem. Marcus stood up. He needed to move, needed to do something with the energy building in his chest. You're my CEO, Elena. The woman who discovered I was being exploited and swooped in to fix everything. The woman who changed my whole life with one conversation in my kitchen. He turned to face her. How am I supposed to know if what I feel for you is real, or if it's just gratitude? Some messed up response to someone finally seeing me. Is that what you think this is, gratitude? I don't know. That's what I'm trying to tell you. I don't know what this is. Elena stood too. She moved toward him but stopped a few feet away, respecting the distance he'd put between them. Can I tell you what I think? Go ahead. I think you're scared. And I think I'm scared too. And I think we're both looking for reasons why this can't work, because it's easier than admitting that maybe it can. There are 100 reasons why this can't work. Name them. You're my boss. There's a power imbalance that I can recuse myself from any decisions affecting your position. We can implement oversight protocols. The company has procedures for exactly this situation. People at work will say you promoted me because we're sleeping together. Some people already say that. Taking away the only good thing in my life won't stop them from talking. People outside work will look at us and see, I don't know, stereotypes. A wealthy white woman and a black man from the South Side. Everyone will have an opinion. Let them. Elena, I'm serious. Let them have their opinions. Let them whisper and judge and assume whatever they want to assume. She stepped closer. I have spent my entire adult life caring about what people think. Protecting my image. Being the appropriate thing, the expected thing, the safe thing. And you know what? It got me. A penthouse apartment that feels like a museum, and a life that looks impressive from the outside and feels completely empty from the inside. Her voice cracked. Then I met you, and Maya. And suddenly I remember what it feels like to be happy, to laugh at a dinner table, to care about someone's day, to want something for myself instead of for the company or the shareholders or the board. She was close enough now that he could see the tears forming in her eyes. So yes, there are 100 reasons why this is complicated. But I'm tired of letting complications win. Marcus stood very still. After Denise died, I closed myself off. I poured everything into work, and Maya and I convinced myself that was enough. That I didn't need anything else. That wanting more would just lead to more pain. And now I don't know. I just know that I feel more alive when I'm with you than I have in years, and that terrifies me. Why? Because I loved Denise more than anything in the world, and losing her nearly destroyed me. If I let myself feel that way about someone again? He couldn't finish the sentence. Elena reached out and took his hands in hers. I can't promise you forever. Nobody can promise that. But I can promise you that I'm not going anywhere unless you ask me to. I can promise that whatever this is, I want to find out. I can promise that I will fight for this for us as hard as I've ever fought for anything. Even if it costs you, especially then. People will talk, Elena, about you, about us, about what it means. My mother thinks I'm playing with fire. Half the managers at Sterling think I slept my way into my position. If we go public with this, then we go public together, No sneaking around. No pretending in conference rooms that you're just another employee. If we do this, we do it in the open." She squeezed his hands. "Consequences be damned." "You make it sound simple." "It is simple. Not easy, but simple." She held his gaze. "I love you, Marcus. I didn't mean to. I didn't plan to, but I do. And I think you love me too. Am I wrong?" The question hung in the air between them. Marcus thought about all the reasons he should say no, all the complications, the obstacles, the judgments. He thought about Denise and the years of grief he'd carried like a stone in his chest. He thought about Maya, who had already lost one mother and couldn't afford to lose another person she'd grown to love. But then he thought about Elena in his kitchen, washing his dishes because she didn't know how else to be human. He thought about her laughing at his daughter's jokes. He thought about the way she made him feel seen, truly seen for the first time in years. "You're not wrong." "Then what do we do?" "I think we start with dinner. A real dinner. At a real restaurant, where people can see us together. And after that we figure it out as we go." Elena smiled. It was a small smile, uncertain. Hopeful, nothing like the confident CEO who commanded boardrooms and negotiated billion-dollar deals. "That sounds terrifying." "It does. But also kind of wonderful." "Yeah, kind of wonderful." When she kissed him, it was soft and tentative and full of promise. He kissed her back, letting go of the fear for just a moment, letting himself feel something other than exhaustion and grief and the constant weight of proving himself. Maya's voice came from the hallway. "I knew it. I knew you were boyfriend and girlfriend." They broke apart to find the 8-year-old standing in her pajamas, grinning triumphantly. "You're supposed to be asleep," Marcus said. "I had to go to the bathroom, and I heard you talking, and I wanted to see what happened." Maya crossed her arms. "Are you going to get married? Because if you do, I want to be the flower girl, and also the ring bearer. I don't see why those have to be different jobs." Elena laughed, that real laugh Marcus had grown to love. "We're not getting married, baby. We're figuring things out." "Well, figure them out faster. I want to be a flower girl before I'm too old." Maya yawned. "Can Lena tuck me in?" Elena looked at Marcus. He nodded. "Come on, princess." Elena took Maya's hand. "Let's get you back to bed." Marcus watched them walk down the hall together. The woman he was falling in love with, and the daughter who had somehow known it before he did. He was still standing there when Elena came back a few minutes later. "She's out. Fell asleep before I finished the first page of the story." "She does that?" "Marcus. Yeah, we're really doing this." He looked at her. This woman who had walked into his life through guilt and transformation and stayed because of something that had grown far beyond either of those things. "Yeah, we're really doing this." She smiled, and for the first time in 3 years, Marcus Taylor let himself believe that something good was possible. Gloria found out 3 days later. Marcus hadn't planned to tell her yet. He wanted to find the right moment, the right words, the right way to explain something he barely understood himself. But Maya, God bless her, and her inability to keep a secret, announced it at Sunday dinner like she was reporting the weather. "Daddy and Lena are boyfriend and girlfriend now. I saw them kissing." Gloria's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. "Excuse me." "Maya," Marcus started. "It's true. They were in the living room and they didn't know I was watching, and they kissed like in the movies. It was gross but also kind of nice." Gloria set her fork down very carefully. She looked at Marcus with an expression he hadn't seen since he was 17, and she'd caught him sneaking back into the house at 3 a.m. "Maya, baby, go watch TV in the other room. But I'm not done eating. Take your plate with you." Maya knew better than to argue with that tone. She grabbed her plate and disappeared, leaving Marcus alone with his mother and a silence that felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. "Is it true? Mama? Don't. Mama, me. Is it true? Are you involved with that woman?" Marcus took a breath. "Yes, it's true." Gloria closed her eyes. When she opened them again, the disappointment in them hit Marcus like a physical blow. Have you lost your mind? I know it's complicated. Complicated. Marcus, that woman is your boss. She's the CEO of the company that damn near worked you to death. And now you're what, dating her, sleeping with her. It's not like that. Then tell me what it's like. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like a man who got thrown a lifeline and decided to tie it around his own neck. Marcus felt his jaw tighten. She's not a lifeline, Mama. She's a person I care about. A person who has power over your career, your salary, your future. Gloria shook her head. What happens when this goes wrong? What happens when she decides she's done playing house with the maintenance man and moves on to someone more appropriate? That's not fair. Life isn't fair. I thought you knew that by now. Gloria's voice softened slightly. Baby, I'm not saying this to hurt you. I'm saying it because I've seen how the world works. A woman like that, rich, white, powerful, she has options you don't have. She can walk away from this and her life goes back to normal. But you're the one who gets talked about. You're the one who gets labeled. I know what people will say. Do you really? Gloria leaned forward. They'll say you slept your way into that promotion. They'll say she took pity on you. They'll say you're her charity case, her way of feeling good about herself. And that's just the white folks. Our people. They'll say you're a sellout. They'll say you forgot where you came from. I haven't forgotten anything. Haven't you? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've forgotten that 3 months ago, this woman didn't even know your name. She walked past you in the hallway for 3 years and never once saw you. And now suddenly, she's in love. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. She sees me now, Mama. That's what matters. Does it? Or does she just see what she wants to see? The hard-working single father she can save. The story she can tell herself about being a good person. That's not what this is. How do you know? How can you possibly know? Because I know her. I've spent months getting to know her. Not the CEO, not the company. Her. And yes, it started with guilt. It started with her feeling terrible about what happened to me. But it's not about that anymore. Marcus met his mother's eyes. I love her, Mama. And she loves me. And I know that sounds crazy given everything, but it's true. Gloria was silent for a long time. And Maya? Have you thought about what this means for Maya? Maya loves Elena. You've seen them together. I've seen a little girl who lost her mother attach herself to the first woman who showed her attention. That's not the same as love. That's need. Gloria's voice cracked. What happens when this falls apart? What happens when Maya loses another person she cares about? You willing to risk your daughter's heart on this? The question hit Marcus harder than anything else she'd said, because it was the same question he'd been asking himself every night when he lay awake wondering if he was making the right choice. I can't protect Maya from everything, Mama. I can't keep her in a bubble where nobody ever leaves and nothing ever changes. All I can do is show her what it looks like when someone takes a chance on something, when someone chooses hope over fear. Pretty words. True words. Gloria stood up from the table. She moved to the window and stood there for a long moment, her back to Marcus. Your father would have hated this. Daddy would have wanted me to be happy. Your father would have wanted you to be safe. There's a difference. She turned to face him. But your father's been gone for 12 years. And you're a grown man who makes his own choices. She paused. I don't approve of this, Marcus. I want that on the record. But I love you. And if this is what you want, I'll try to understand. That's all I'm asking. But I'm watching. And if she hurts you, if she hurts my granddaughter, there's no force on earth that will stop me from making her regret it. Marcus actually smiled at that. I'll let her know. You do that. Going public at Sterling Hotels was exactly as complicated as they'd expected. Elena insisted on doing it properly. No rumors, no whispers, no letting the gossip mill control the narrative. She scheduled a meeting with the board of directors, disclosed the relationship formally, and implemented a comprehensive set of oversight protocols to ensure that Marcus's position was protected from any appearance of favoritism. The board's reaction was mixed. "This is a PR nightmare waiting to happen," said one director. "The optics are terrible," said another. "The CEO dating a man she personally promoted after an internal scandal. The shareholders will have questions." "Let them ask," Elena replied. "I'll answer every single one, transparently, honestly, the way we should have been operating all along." The final decision was to allow the relationship to continue under strict guidelines. Elena would recuse herself from any decisions affecting Marcus's position or compensation. An independent committee would review his performance. Everything would be documented, tracked, monitored. It felt clinical. It felt necessary. Marcus's colleagues found out the day Elena sent the company-wide memo. He walked into the facilities management office that morning and felt the temperature drop by 20 degrees. Conversation stopped. Eyes followed him. Someone laughed quickly, stifled. "Well, well," said Craig Morrison, one of the other directors. "Guess we know how you got that promotion now." Marcus kept walking toward his office. "I'm talking to you, Taylor." Marcus stopped, turned. "You got something to say, Craig?" "I got plenty to say. We all busted our asses for years waiting for a shot at that director position. Then you waltz in, and suddenly you're fast-tracked to the top. Now we find out you've been banging the boss." Craig shook his head. "Must be nice." "You done?" "I'm just getting started. See, some of us actually earned our positions. We didn't need to find creative ways to..." "Careful." Marcus's voice was quiet. Dangerous. "You really want to finish that sentence? Or what, you'll run to your girlfriend and have me fired?" "I don't need Elena to handle you. I don't need anyone to handle you." Marcus stepped closer. "You want to talk about earning positions? Let's talk about your quarterly numbers. Let's talk about the 3 projects you've run over budget in the last year. Let's talk about the 2 formal complaints from your staff about hostile work environment." He lowered his voice. "Let's talk about who really earned what." Craig's face reddened. "You think you're special because the CEO feels guilty about what happened to you?" "I think I'm good at my job. I think my numbers prove it. And I think that bothers you more than anything else." Marcus turned to walk away, then stopped. "Oh, and Craig, if you ever talk about my relationship again, I won't waste time with words. We clear..." He didn't wait for an answer. That night, Elena called him. "I heard about what happened with Morrison. News travels fast. HR already has a file open. He's been a problem for years. This might be the final straw. I don't want him fired because of me. I want him fired because he's incompetent." "Those aren't mutually exclusive." Marcus sighed. "This is how it's going to be, isn't it? Everything I do, every decision I make, it's all going to be filtered through us, through the relationship." "For a while, yes. Probably. How do you deal with it? People questioning everything, assuming the worst." Elena was quiet for a moment. "I've been dealing with it my whole career. Not exactly the same, but similar. When I first became CEO, every decision I made was questioned. Every success was attributed to my father's name. Every failure was proof that a woman couldn't handle the job." She paused. "It took years to build credibility. Years of being twice as good for half the recognition. Sound familiar?" "Yeah, it does. The only way through it is through it. You keep showing up. You keep doing the work. You let the results speak for themselves. Eventually some people come around. The ones who don't, they weren't going to respect you anyway." "That's not very comforting." "It's not meant to be comforting. It's meant to be true." Marcus was quiet. "I'm tired, Elena. I'm tired of having to prove myself over and over again. I thought getting this position would change things. But it's just a different kind of proving." "I know, and I'm sorry." "Don't apologize. It's not your fault." "It's partly my fault. I'm the one who made things complicated." We both made things complicated. That's what love is, right? Choosing the complication. He heard her smile through the phone. That might be the most romantic thing you've ever said to me. Don't get used to it. I'm not good at romantic. You're better than you think. The whispers outside of work were worse. The story spread quickly. CEO dates, employees she promoted after scandal, and everyone had an opinion. Marcus saw it in the way strangers looked at them when they walked into restaurants together. He heard it in the silence that fell when they entered a room. At Maya's school, a mother approached him at pickup one afternoon. "I heard about your situation," she said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "It must be so hard, having people think, well, you know what people think." "I don't actually. Why don't you tell me?" The woman's smile faltered. "I just meant, a man in your position with a woman like that, people assume things. They can't help it." "What kind of things?" "You know, that maybe you're taking advantage of an opportunity." "An opportunity? She's wealthy, powerful, and you're—" She trailed off, suddenly aware that she'd said too much. "I'm what black poor a single father from the South Side." Marcus's voice was calm, but his eyes were hard. "Go ahead. Finish the sentence." "I didn't mean—" "You meant exactly what you said. You just didn't expect me to call you on it." Marcus stepped closer. "My relationship with Elena is none of your business. My daughter is none of your business. And if I ever hear you talking about either of them again, we're going to have a much longer conversation. Understand?" The woman hurried away without another word. That night, Marcus told Elena what happened. "God, I'm so sorry." She sounded exhausted. "This is my fault. I never should have—" "Stop. Don't do that." "Do what?" "Make this about your guilt. Every time something happens, you apologize like you're personally responsible for every racist, judgmental person in Chicago." Marcus's voice softened. "You're not. You can't control how people think. You can only control how we respond." "How do we respond?" "We keep living. We keep being together. We keep showing Maya what it looks like when people choose each other despite what the world thinks." Elena was quiet. "Sometimes I wonder if I'm worth it. All the complications, all the judgment. If it would just be easier for you to be with someone who didn't come with all this baggage." "You think you're the only one with baggage? I'm a widower, with a daughter, a mountain of debt, and about 1,000 trust issues. You want to compare baggage?" She laughed softly. "I guess we're both complicated. We're both human. That's the same thing." The first real crisis came 6 months into their relationship. A reporter from the Chicago Tribune had been digging into the Derek Harrison story. Somehow he'd gotten wind of Marcus and Elena's relationship. He called Elena's office requesting an interview. "He's framing it as a follow-up on the embezzlement case," Elena told Marcus that evening. "But his questions are really about us, about the timing, about whether the relationship influenced the promotion." "What did you tell him?" "I told him no comment. My PR team is preparing a statement." "Will that be enough?" "Probably not. He's going to write something either way. The question is, how much damage it does." Marcus felt the familiar weight settling onto his shoulders. The weight of being examined, questioned, doubted. The weight of never being allowed to simply exist without scrutiny. "Maybe we should talk to him." Elena looked up sharply. "What?" "Maybe we should give him an interview. Control the narrative instead of letting him create one." "Marcus, that's incredibly risky. One wrong word, one quote taken out of context." "I know, but hiding makes us look guilty. Staying silent lets him fill in the blanks however he wants." Marcus met her eyes. "I've spent my whole life being invisible. Then I spent 3 years being exploited because I didn't speak up. I'm done being silent." "What would you even say?" "The truth, that I worked at Sterling for years, that I was exploited by a corrupt supervisor, that Elena discovered it, fixed it, and we fell in love in the process." He paused. It's not a scandal. It's a love story. We just have to tell it that way. The interview was scheduled for the following week. Marcus and Elena sat together in a conference room at the Tribune offices. The reporter, a man named David Chen, had kind eyes but probing questions. Let me make sure I understand the timeline. You discovered Mr. Harrison's embezzlement scheme in January. You promoted Mr. Taylor in March, and you began dating when? Personally around May. Elena's voice was steady. But to be clear, the promotion was based entirely on Marcus's performance metrics. 3 years of exceptional work that had been deliberately hidden from me. The relationship came later, after we'd gotten to know each other as people. Some would say that's awfully convenient. Some would say the earth is flat. Marcus leaned forward. Look, I understand why this seems suspicious. CEO promotes employee, CEO dates, employee, it writes itself. But that's not the whole story. What is the whole story? The whole story is that I spent 3 years believing I wasn't good enough. 3 years of 16-hour days and missed dinners with my daughter. 3 years of watching other people get promoted while I was told I needed to step up. His voice tightened. And then Elena walked into my kitchen at midnight and showed me that none of it was my fault. That I had been sabotaged by someone I trusted. That my entire perception of myself was based on lies. That must have been devastating. It was. But it was also the first time in 3 years that someone saw me. Really saw me. Not as a number on a spreadsheet. Not as a problem to be managed. As a human being. Chen turned to Elena. And when did you realize your feelings went beyond professional concern? Elena thought for a moment. There was a night early on when I came to his apartment and his daughter was sick. She was 8 years old and she looked at me and asked why I was making her daddy work so much. Her voice caught slightly. And I realized that my blindness hadn't just affected Marcus. It had affected this child, this family, a whole life that I had never bothered to see. So you felt guilty. I felt responsible. There's a difference. Guilt is about feeling bad. Responsibility is about doing something. She looked at Marcus. I could have written a check, offered a settlement, made the problem disappear. But I didn't want the problem to disappear. I wanted to understand it. And the more I understood Marcus, the more I fell in love with him. The article ran 2 weeks later. It was fairer than Marcus had expected. Chen had actually listened. He'd presented their story without sensationalism, included quotes from colleagues who vouched for Marcus's work ethic, and even referenced the statistical impossibility of Marcus's suppressed performance reviews being legitimate. But the comments section was a war zone. Marcus made the mistake of reading them. Gold digger. She's just doing this for PR. Another rich white woman with a savior complex. He played the race card and got rewarded for it. Elena found him sitting on his balcony that night, phone in hand, scrolling through the vitriol. Stop reading those. I can't. Why? Because I need to know what they think, what the world thinks. Elena sat down beside him and gently took the phone from his hands. The world thinks a lot of things. Most of them are wrong. She turned off the screen. What matters is what we think. What Maya thinks, what the people who actually know us think. The people who actually know us are worried we're making a mistake. Your mother, among others. Do you think we're making a mistake? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. No, I don't. But I think I underestimated how hard this would be. I thought once we went public, once everything was out in the open, it would get easier. But it just got different. Different kinds of hard. Are you having second thoughts? About us, no. He looked at her. About whether we can survive everything that's stacked against us sometimes. Elena took his hand. I had a board member tell me yesterday that I should consider the long-term implications of this relationship. Translation: dump the black guy before it hurts the stock price. She shook her head. I told him that if he ever brought it up again, he could consider his own long-term implications on this board. You didn't. I did. Elena, you can't threaten board members over me. I didn't threaten him. I just clarified my priorities. She squeezed his hand. You're my priority, Marcus. You and Maya. Everything else is negotiable. Your career isn't negotiable, not for me. My career is what I make it, and I'm choosing to make it something that includes you. She leaned against his shoulder. We knew this wouldn't be easy. We knew people would talk. We knew there would be days when it felt like the whole world was against us. Is this supposed to be a pep talk because it's not very peppy? She laughed softly. What I'm saying is that hard doesn't mean wrong. Complicated doesn't mean impossible. We just have to keep choosing each other. Every day, no matter what. Every day. Every single one. Marcus looked out at the city below them. The lights, the traffic, the endless movement of people living their lives, making their choices, fighting their battles. You know what Maya asked me this morning? What? She asked if you were going to move in. She said, and I quote, Lena's here all the time anyway, so she might as well just stay. Elena's breath caught. What did you tell her? I told her that was a conversation for grown-ups. What do the grown-ups think? Marcus turned to look at her. This woman who had walked into his life through guilt and grown into something he couldn't imagine living without. This woman who was facing down board members and reporters and an entire world of judgment for him, for Maya, for them. The grown-ups think it's probably too soon, that we should wait, that we should be practical. And what does Marcus think? Marcus thinks he's tired of being practical. Marcus thinks that life is short and unpredictable, and that the people you love should be close enough to reach. He paused. Marcus thinks that if you want to stay, you should stay. Elena's eyes filled with tears. Are you asking me to move in? I'm asking you to stop leaving. There's a difference. She kissed him, then soft and deep, with the weight of everything they'd been through and everything they still had to face. Yes. Yeah. Yes, I'll stop leaving. Maya's voice came from inside the apartment. Does this mean Lena's going to be here for breakfast every day because she burns the toast less than Daddy does? They both laughed, the tension breaking. You're supposed to be asleep, Marcus called back. I was asleep, but then I woke up and I heard you talking. Maya appeared in the doorway. Her pajamas wrinkled her hair wild. So, is Lena staying? Elena looked at Marcus. Marcus looked at Maya. Yeah, baby. Lena's staying. Maya grinned so wide it seemed to light up the entire balcony. Finally. Can we have pancakes tomorrow to celebrate? It's a school night. Celebration pancakes, Daddy. It's important. Fine. Celebration pancakes. Maya disappeared back into the apartment, already calling out what toppings she wanted. Elena leaned against Marcus's shoulder again. Celebration pancakes, huh? Welcome to the family. Is that what this is? Marcus put his arm around her and pulled her close. That's exactly what this is. Elena moved in on a Saturday. She arrived with 3 suitcases and a box of books, which was far less than Marcus had expected. When he asked about the rest of her things, she shrugged and said, The penthouse came furnished. Most of what I owned there wasn't really mine. Maya had spent the entire week preparing. She'd cleared half her bookshelf for Elena's important grown-up books. She'd made a welcome sign with glitter and markers that shed sparkles all over the hallway. She'd even reorganized the bathroom cabinet to make room for Elena's fancy lotions. This is your drawer, Maya announced solemnly, pointing to the empty space she'd created. Daddy has that one, I have those two, and now you have this one. It's the rules. I accept these terms, Elena said with equal solemnity. That first night, the 3 of them sat on the floor of the living room, eating pizza from boxes because nobody had felt like cooking. Maya was wedged between them, cheese dripping down her chin, telling Elena about every single thing that had happened at school that week in excruciating detail. And then Tyler said that girls can't play basketball, And I said that's stupid because my teacher, Ms. Robinson, played basketball in college, and then Tyler said she probably wasn't very good, and then I pushed him. Maya. Marcus set down his pizza. You pushed someone. Only a little. And he deserved it. We don't push people even when they deserve it. Then what do we do? Elena wiped her hands on a napkin. We use our words, but we use them like weapons. Marcus shot her a look. That's not exactly the lesson I was going for. What? It's true. Words can be more powerful than pushing. You just have to know which ones to use. Elena turned to Maya. Next time Tyler says something stupid, ask him a question. Don't argue with him. Just ask him why he thinks that. Make him explain himself. Most of the time, people can't explain their own stupidity, and they end up embarrassed without you having to do anything. Maya considered this. That's sneaky. That's strategy. I like it. Marcus shook his head, but he was smiling. Great. Now I've got two of you scheming together. 3, Maya corrected. Grandma schemes too. She's just quiet about it. Your grandmother doesn't scheme. Daddy, she totally schemes. She told me that she accidentally mentioned to Mrs. Patterson that you were dating someone rich and important, just so Mrs. Patterson would stop trying to set you up with her niece. Elena laughed so hard she nearly choked on her pizza. I love your grandmother. She's warming up to you, Maya said matter-of-factly. She said you have good bones. What does that mean? I don't know, but it sounded like a compliment. The first month was an adjustment. Elena wasn't used to sharing space. She'd lived alone for 15 years, moving through her penthouse like a ghost, filling the silence with work emails and conference calls. Now there was noise everywhere. Maya's music, Marcus's sports commentary, the constant hum of a household that was actually alive. She burned the toast 3 times in the first week. It's not my fault, she insisted after the smoke alarm went off for the 3rd time. Your toaster is possessed. The toaster is fine. You just have to watch it. I was watching it. And then I was answering an email. And then suddenly there was fire. There was not fire. There was smoke. Smoke is pre-fire. Maya wandered into the kitchen, assessed the situation, and sighed with the world weariness of someone 3 times her age. Lena, I love you, but you're really bad at breakfast. I know. Maybe you should just do lunch instead. Lunch is harder to burn. Elena implemented this suggestion immediately. She took over lunch packing duties, which she approached with the same intensity she brought to quarterly planning. Within 2 weeks, Maya had the most elaborate lunches in her class bento boxes with fruit carved into shapes, sandwiches cut into stars, little notes hidden between the carrot sticks. Sophie asked if I have a personal chef. Maya reported one afternoon. What did you tell her? I told her my stepmom is extra. The word hit the room like a thunderclap. Elena froze. Marcus froze. Even Maya seemed to realize she'd said something significant, her eyes going wide. I mean, not stepmom, because you're not married. I just meant the kids at school asked who makes my lunches, and I didn't know what to call you, and stepmom just came out. Maya's voice got very small. Is that okay? Elena knelt down so she was at Maya's eye level. It's more than okay. It's perfect. Really? Really? You can call me whatever feels right to you. What if I just call you Lena? Then you call me Lena. But maybe sometimes with the kids at school, I can say stepmom, because it's easier to explain. You can say it whenever you want. Maya threw her arms around Elena's neck. I'm glad you live here now. Me too, sweetheart. Me too. That night, after Maya was asleep, Marcus found Elena sitting on the balcony with tears running down her face. Hey, what's wrong? Nothing's wrong. She wiped her eyes. Everything's right. That's what's making me cry. He sat down beside her. She called me stepmom. This little girl who I've only known for less than a year, she called me stepmom. Elena's voice cracked. I never thought I'd have this, Marcus. A family. A real family. I'd given up on it. I'd convinced myself that the company was enough, that my legacy would be the jobs I created and the deals I closed. And now I can't imagine my life without you, either of you. She looked at him. Is that terrifying? Yeah, it is. But good terrifying. The best kind. At Sterling Hotels, the changes Marcus had helped implement were becoming impossible to ignore. The diversity initiatives weren't just policy documents anymore. There were real metrics, real accountability, real consequences for managers who fell back into old patterns. The anonymous hotline had generated dozens of reports in the first 6 months, each one investigated thoroughly by an independent committee. 3 more terminations had followed Derek Harrison's. 2 managers in the housekeeping division who'd been running their own version of his scheme, smaller scale, but the same principle. 1 HR director who'd been systematically blocking complaints from minority employees. Marcus sat in on the termination meetings. Not because he had to, but because he wanted to see it happen. He wanted to know that the system could actually change. "You're becoming a symbol," James Crawford told him one afternoon. They were sharing coffee in Marcus's office, a ritual they'd developed over the past months. "People look at you, and they see possibility. The guy who got knocked down and got back up. The guy who made them listen. I didn't make them do anything. Elena made them listen." "Elena gave you a platform. You're the one who used it." James shook his head. "Don't underestimate what you've done here. When I started at this company 23 years ago, there wasn't a single black face in management. Not one. Now there's you. And because of you, there'll be others. That's a lot of pressure. That's responsibility. There's a difference." James smiled slightly. "You remember what I told you your first week about being in the room where it happens?" "I remember." "Well, you're not just in the room anymore. You're changing what happens in the room. That matters." Marcus thought about that conversation often in the weeks that followed. About what it meant to be a symbol. About the weight of representing something larger than yourself. He'd spent so much of his life trying to be invisible. Trying to blend in, work hard, not make waves. And now, here he was, the most visible person in the building. The story that got told when executives wanted to prove the company had changed. The example that got cited in diversity training sessions. It was exhausting. But it was also, in its own way, exhilarating. Because for the first time in his life, Marcus Taylor was exactly where he was supposed to be. Gloria came around slowly. It happened in small moments. A nod of approval when Elena helped Maya with homework. A almost smile when Elena asked for Gloria's secret biscuit recipe. A grudging admission after a Sunday dinner where Elena had actually managed to make edible cornbread that maybe she's not completely hopeless. The real breakthrough came on Maya's 9th birthday. They'd planned a party at the apartment, just family, and a few of Maya's closest friends. Elena had offered to rent out a venue, hire entertainment, go all out. Marcus had gently explained that Maya didn't want all out. She wanted a backyard barbecue like she used to have when her mother was alive. "We don't have a backyard," Elena pointed out. "That's why we're doing it in the park. Same energy." Elena had never been to a backyard barbecue. She'd never played pin the tail on the donkey or watched kids destroy a piñata with the kind of violence usually reserved for action movies. She stood at the edge of the chaos, looking slightly overwhelmed. Gloria appeared beside her. "You look like a fish out of water." "Is it that obvious?" "Honey, you're standing at a children's party in heels." "Yes, it's obvious." Elena looked down at her shoes. "I didn't know what to wear. I've never done this before." "Done what, birthday parties?" "Any of it. Kids' parties, family things. My mother used to hire people to organize my birthdays. I'd show up, pose for pictures, and leave." Elena's voice was quiet. "I don't know how to do this, Gloria. The real version. I'm learning, but sometimes I feel like I'm failing a test I never studied for." Gloria was silent for a moment. "You see that little girl over there? The one covered in frosting and grass stains? Maya." That little girl has smiled more in the last 6 months than she did in the 2 years after her mother died. Gloria's voice softened. You think you're failing, baby? You're the reason she's smiling. You and that ridiculous lunchbox, and the way you listen to her like what she says actually matters. It does matter. Everything she says matters. I know, that's the point. Gloria turned to face Elena fully. I didn't want to like you. I want you to know that. When Marcus first told me about you, I thought you were another rich white woman playing at being good, salving your conscience on my son's back. And now I think you're a woman who didn't know how empty her life was until she found something to fill it with. Gloria's eyes were hard, but not unkind. I'm still watching you. I'll always be watching you. But I'm not watching for you to fail anymore. I'm watching because you're family now, and I watch my family. Elena's throat tightened. Thank you, Gloria. Don't thank me. Thank Marcus for being stubborn enough to see something in you the rest of us missed. She paused. Now take off those heels and go help my granddaughter hit that piñata. She's been at it for 5 minutes and the thing's barely dented. The proposal happened on a Tuesday. There was no grand plan, no orchestrated moment. Marcus had bought the ring weeks ago, a modest diamond that had still cost him 3 months of savings and had been carrying it around in his pocket, waiting for the right moment. The right moment turned out to be completely ordinary. They were washing dishes together after dinner. Maya was in her room doing homework. The evening news was murmuring from the television in the living room. Outside, someone's car alarm kept going off and being silenced in an endless annoying cycle. Elena handed him a wet plate to dry. Maya asked me something today. What? She asked if we were going to get married. She said, and I quote, "You've been boyfriend and girlfriend forever, so when's the wedding?" Marcus almost dropped the plate. What did you tell her? I told her that was something grown-ups decide together. Elena handed him another plate. But it got me thinking. We've been together for almost a year. I've been living here for 4 months, and we've never actually talked about what comes next. What do you want to come next? Elena stopped washing. She turned to face him, her hands dripping soap suds onto the floor. I want this, every day, for the rest of my life. The dishes and the homework and the burnt toast and all of it. Her voice was steady, but her eyes were bright. I want to be Maya's stepmom. Officially. I want to be your wife. I want to stop being your girlfriend and start being your family. Marcus reached into his pocket. Is that a yes? Elena stared at the ring. You already have a ring. I've had it for 6 weeks. I've been waiting for the right moment. This is the right moment. We're doing dishes. We're building a life. That's what this is. Dishes and homework and ordinary Tuesdays. He held out the ring. I don't want a perfect moment, Elena. I want every moment. The messy ones and the hard ones and the ones where the car alarm won't stop going off outside. Elena laughed through sudden tears. That car alarm is really annoying. So annoying. Will you marry me anyway? Yes. God, yes. He slid the ring onto her finger. She kissed him with soapy hands, getting bubbles all over his shirt, and neither of them cared. Maya appeared in the kitchen doorway. Why are you guys crying? Did something bad happen? Something good happened, baby. What? Marcus looked at Elena. Elena looked at Marcus. I asked Lena to marry me. And I said yes. Maya's scream could probably be heard 3 blocks away. Finally, I told you, you should figure it out faster. She ran and crashed into both of them, wrapping her arms around their waists. Can I be the flower girl? And the ring bearer, I already called it, remember. You can be whatever you want. I want to be everything. Is that okay? That's perfect. The wedding was small. They held it in the park where they'd had Maya's birthday party, the same patch of grass, the same old oak tree, the same imperfect, ordinary, beautiful place where their little family had started to become real. Gloria stood next to Marcus as his best woman. James Crawford read a poem. Maya walked down the aisle once, throwing flower petals, once carrying the rings, because she had insisted, and nobody had the heart to tell her no. Elena wore a simple white dress. No designer labels. No elaborate train. Just something beautiful and real, like the life they were building together. Marcus wore the same suit he'd worn to Denise's funeral, which felt right somehow. That suit had seen him through the worst day of his life. Now it was seeing him through one of the best. When the officiant asked if anyone objected, Maya shouted, "Nobody better," and everyone laughed. When it came time for vows, Marcus spoke first. "A year and a half ago I came home and found a stranger in my kitchen. A woman I'd never met washing my dishes, looking at me like she'd just discovered something terrible." And she had. She'd discovered that my life had been stolen from me piece by piece for 3 years. He took Elena's hands. I was angry. I was broken. I was so tired I could barely stand up. And this woman, this CEO of a $4 billion company, knelt down in my kitchen and told my daughter she was sorry. She looked at my little girl and saw a person who mattered. And that's when I knew. Knew what? That you weren't just trying to fix a mistake. You were trying to become someone who wouldn't make that mistake again. And I wanted to know that person. I wanted to love that person. His voice cracked. I didn't think I'd ever love anyone again after Denise. I thought that part of me was gone forever. But you found it. You found me. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life being grateful for a stranger who washed my dishes at midnight. Elena wiped tears from her cheeks. Marcus, when I walked into your apartment that night, I thought I was there to give you something. Information. Apology. Some kind of restitution for what had been done to you. I had no idea that you were about to give me something infinitely more valuable. She squeezed his hands. You gave me a family. You gave me a daughter. You gave me a reason to come home at night that had nothing to do with quarterly reports or shareholder meetings. You showed me what it means to work hard for something that matters, not a company, not a legacy, but people. The people you love. She looked at Maya, who was bouncing on her heels with barely contained excitement. I used to think I knew what success looked like. Corner offices and private jets and magazine covers. But success is this. This moment, this family, this ordinary, extraordinary life we're building together. The officiant smiled. By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride. Maya cheered. Gloria wiped her eyes. James whistled loudly, and Marcus Taylor kissed his wife, while the Chicago sun set behind them, painting everything in shades of gold. 1 year later. The apartment was loud on Sunday mornings now. Maya had developed a passion for cooking shows, and insisted on recreating elaborate breakfasts that usually resulted in impressive messes and moderately edible food. Gloria came by every Sunday after church, settling into her favorite chair, like she owned the place, which in many ways she did. James Crawford stopped by sometimes with his wife, and the small space would fill with laughter and conversation, and the kind of warmth that Marcus had almost forgotten existed. Elena had learned to make pancakes without burning them. It had taken 8 months and approximately 40 ruined batches, but she'd done it. Maya had awarded her a certificate that said, "Official Pancake Person," in glitter marker. On this particular Sunday, Marcus stood in the kitchen doorway and watched his family. Maya was explaining to Gloria why TikTok dances were actually really hard. Grandma, you don't understand. Gloria was pretending to be interested while sneaking bites of bacon from Maya's plate. Elena was at the stove flipping pancakes with a concentration usually reserved for hostile takeover negotiations. "I think this one's perfect," Elena announced. "Look at the color. Look at the roundness. This is peak pancake." "Let me see." Maya abandoned her TikTok argument and rushed to inspect. 7 out of 10. The edges are a little crispy. Crispy is good. Crispy is burned, but it's okay. You're improving. I'm being graded by a 9-year-old. A 9.5-year-old, big difference. Marcus smiled. 3 years ago, he'd come home every night to an empty apartment and fallen asleep with his boots still on. 3 years ago, he'd believed he wasn't good enough, would never be good enough no matter how hard he worked. 3 years ago, he'd been invisible. Now he was seen. By his daughter. By his wife. By a company that had finally started to change. By a world that was slowly, painfully beginning to recognize what had always been true, that black men like him deserved more than exhaustion and exploitation and the constant weight of proving themselves. The changes at Sterling hotels were real now, permanent, built into policies and practices and the very culture of the organization. Marcus had been promoted again 6 months ago, Vice President of Operations, the first black man to hold the position in the company's history. He'd hired James Crawford as his Director of Facilities, finally giving the man who'd watched and waited for 23 years a seat at the table he deserved. The whispers hadn't stopped completely. They probably never would. But they'd gotten quieter, replaced by results, by numbers, by the undeniable evidence that Marcus Taylor was exactly where he belonged. "Daddy," Maya's voice cut through his thoughts. "Stop standing there being weird and come eat. The pancakes are getting cold." "I'm not being weird. I'm appreciating." "You can appreciate while eating. Come on." He sat down at the table, the same table where Elena had spread out those documents almost 2 years ago. The same table where his whole life had changed. Gloria passed him the syrup. Elena set down a plate of pancakes that were only slightly crispy around the edges. Maya launched into a story about something that had happened at school that required approximately 7 different voices to tell properly. Marcus ate his pancakes and listened to his daughter and felt his wife's hand brush against his under the table. After breakfast, after the dishes were done, and Gloria had gone home and Maya had retreated to her room to video chat with her friends, Marcus and Elena sat on the balcony. The same balcony where they'd had so many important conversations. The same view of the parking lot below the city, beyond the endless possibility of ordinary life. "What are you thinking about?" Elena asked. "That night, when I found you in my kitchen. I was terrified. Did I ever tell you that? You seemed pretty composed to me. I was shaking the whole time. I'd practiced what I was going to say for hours, and then I saw your face when you walked in, and I forgot every word." She leaned against his shoulder. "You looked so tired, so beaten down, and all I could think was I did this. My blindness, my failure to see what was happening in my own company. I did this to this man." "You didn't do it. Harrison did it." "I let it happen. That's the same thing." "No, it's not." Marcus put his arm around her. "You want to know what I was thinking that night?" "What?" "I was thinking that I wanted to hate you. I wanted to be angry at you for showing up uninvited, for turning my whole world upside down, for making me face things I'd been running from for years." He paused. "But then you knelt down to talk to Maya, and you looked at her like she was the most important person in the room. And I thought maybe she's not here for herself. Maybe she's actually here for us." "I was. I am." "I know. I know that now." They sat in silence for a while, watching the afternoon shadows lengthen across the parking lot below. "Marcus, yeah, are you happy?" It was such a simple question, such an impossible question. He thought about everything that had led them here, the exhaustion and the exploitation and the years of believing he wasn't enough. He thought about the battles still being fought, the systems still broken, the work still left to do. But he also thought about Maya's laughter and Elena's burnt toast and Gloria's grudging acceptance. He thought about James Crawford finally getting his due and young employees who saw Marcus's face and believed their own advancement was possible. He thought about coming home at 5:30 instead of midnight, about weekends that actually existed, about being present for his daughter's life instead of just surviving it. "Yeah," he said finally. "I'm happy." "Good. Me too. Even with the crispy pancakes. Even with the crispy pancakes." Maya's voice drifted out from inside the apartment. "Lena, Dad, Can we watch a movie tonight? I get to pick because I did my homework without complaining. You complained the entire time, Marcus called back. But I still did it. That counts. Elena laughed. That real laugh. The one that sounded nothing like boardrooms and quarterly reports. She's not wrong. She's never wrong, according to her. She gets that from you. She gets that from her mother. The words came out before Marcus could stop them. He felt Elena stiffen slightly beside him. Sorry, I didn't mean. Don't apologize. Elena's voice was soft. Denise is part of who Maya is. Part of who you are. I never want you to forget that. I won't. But I also want you to know. He turned to face her. She would have liked you, Denise. She would have been suspicious, at first protective of me and Maya. But she would have seen what I see. A woman who loves fiercely and works hard and never does anything halfway. You think so? I know so. Elena's eyes were bright. Thank you for saying that, for sharing her with me. She's not mine to keep. She belongs to Maya, to our family's history. He took Elena's hand. But you're the future. You're what comes next. And I'm so damn grateful you walked into my kitchen that night. Even though I was uninvited, especially because you were uninvited. The best things usually are. From inside, Maya started playing music, something loud and poppy that made the windows vibrate. I think that's our cue, Elena said. Movie time with a 9.5-year-old. Movie time with our daughter. Our daughter. Marcus felt something settle in his chest, something that had been restless for years looking for a place to land. It felt like peace. It felt like home. He stood up and offered Elena his hand. Come on, wife. Our kid is waiting. Such a romantic. I do my best. They walked inside together into the noise and the chaos and the beautiful ordinary mess of the life they'd built. Maya was already on the couch with the remote debating between two movies with the intensity of someone choosing between life and death. The apartment smelled like pancake syrup and possibility. Marcus Taylor had spent 3 years being invisible, 3 years believing he wasn't enough, 3 years losing himself to a system designed to break him. But he hadn't broken. He'd bent. He'd nearly shattered. He'd questioned everything about himself and his worth and his place in the world. And then a stranger had washed his dishes at midnight and everything had changed. Not because she'd saved him. He'd saved himself through work, through persistence, through the stubborn refusal to give up on a better life for his daughter. But she'd seen him. Really seen him. And sometimes that was all it took. Sometimes being seen was the beginning of everything. Marcus sat down on the couch between his wife and his daughter. Maya immediately sprawled across both of them, claiming maximum space like the small hurricane she was. Elena laughed and tried to negotiate for legroom. The movie started something animated and colorful that Maya would quote for weeks afterward. Outside, the city hummed with its endless noise. Inside, a family existed in the warm glow of a Sunday evening built from broken pieces and second chances and the stubborn belief that love was worth fighting for. Marcus Taylor was home. And for the first time in his life, home was exactly where he was supposed to be.